there you go. You're right. Yeah, I mean, people are going to be divided on it, and just not something I'd want to be dealing with a month before an election. 8:14. Let's keep it going on the phones here. We have Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. But before we get him on, I wanted to play this clip here that we had from yesterday's show with former Governor Carl Gutierrez, who really went in on the administration's efforts, if you will, to house the homeless. And so we'll play this clip from Uncle Carl. This is from yesterday's Containing COVID show.
At one point, I had that under my responsibility, but lately I've been told that for me to stick to tourism, and they have a task force for homeless, and I said, well, okay, sounds good for me, but so far it's been a year and a half, and that homeless group hasn't done nothing. For the homeless community, yes. I know that the governor wanted to move forward something quickly for the Paseo, but that was pulled away from her. But that group who has been charged with this thing, somebody's got to put some responsibility and urgency on these people, because what I was trying to do was solve the problem, long term.
All right. Oh, there you go. LT, we'll go ahead and get you on here. And if you could, maybe just first respond to Uncle Carl's very biting commentary yesterday on the show. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
We're doing pretty good.
How are you doing?
How are you
I'm
doing?
doing fine. I didn't hear about it until Governor Gutierrez called me to let me know about it.
That was like I think I said yesterday. That was unexpected.
Yeah,
we thought we were just catching up on the reopening of tourism, and I just happened to see this video of him and wanted to ask him about it.
Yeah, so I think I would just say that part of it is that. Since he's been over there, he's not been caught up on what's been happening on the procurement side as we try and inch towards things. I mean, even internally in my expectation, I thought we'd have some awards a couple weeks ago, but there's been different, I guess, methods that GSA has been utilizing in emergency procurement to try and get a couple of facilities. One is bed for the night, and the other one is more emergency shelter, short term, as we try and stabilize people. And I just have to say that in one of the methods, there have been offerers that are charging or submitting quotes that are 3 or 4 times the monthly price that has been advertised in the real estate market. And so there's some, I guess last week when I alluded to the price gouging, those are some of the factors. But there is an active procurement going on right now, and we'll see what happens at the close of business today. But the commitment is still there. It's really complicated. I just have a circular I just saw from State of California where the method of putting folks in hotels indefinitely has backfired and has turned into some bad outcomes with regards to safety for children and drug use and et cetera. So what I've been doing the last few weeks, I've met Catholic Social Services, where I've been working with the Mayor's Council, and we have a strategy, or at least a policy that we're about to launch today in partnership with them, that I would say is going to provide some structure and some forward action for a comprehensive government response to the homelessness. And I think that will be out no later than tomorrow. But what it entails is shepherding and assigning resources and aligning them with what is being experienced in all of the villages, and being able to address multiple areas in homelessness. So, one of them is trying to everything from providing the shelter, from getting benefit specialists and case managers to work on these individual cases. There was a recent statute that Senator Mary Torres enacted, or a bill that got into law that establishes ID cards for homeless individuals so they can try and establish some identity and get some services. There are people that are stranded here. There's about 12 of them that are wanting to return to the Northern Marianas, and so there's a family reunification program that we're working on. And then also there are some veterans and others that people that would be entitled to SSI or already are SSI in the States that probably could be able to be returned home under another program to stabilize themselves. So there is a lot. I don't want to get into the specifics of the procurement until it's wrapped up, knowing that there are still offers and still parties that are making submissions today to GSA. But I do have to say that in the emergency procurement side of the house, there certainly probably is room for improvement in terms of how you can try and acquire the facilities.
Is there like a deadline for when to apply? And
for
it
offers,
just seems like this is just an open.
The deadline they had to do a refresh last week, and there is an ad out there, and the deadline is today.
Okay, to apply.
Hello?
Oh no, I heard some audio.
There's a little delay.
Yeah. I was wondering why am I hearing myself? I thought
there's two of you.
Me too.
So did
but,
you?
The way I see, when I spoke to Governor Gutierrez, I'm not interested in, and we talked, we're not interested in getting, into bickering, and that I think he's expressing he has a hat now down in for his role in tourism, and just like him, I've been to that parking structure. There is a private property owner there that I think should be held accountable. And
don't get me started on that, LT. Oh.
Yeah, I heard the property has been sold. It's an escrow, but I think that trying to find places to relocate people has been the issue. Remember, months ago, we thought about Paseo, and then there were some issues, and then even the federal government has been going back and forth about congregate, non-congregate shelters, and it's been kind of something that we needed to straighten out and try and clear up, because it's nationally everybody is having misses and trying to deal with this slot. For us, our big miss is that the timeline in which we expected there to be some interim shelter was, about 6 weeks ago, and that is, I told you last week, I would say that that's been one of the big misses that we need to straighhthen out, and that's why I've gotten even more personally involved in this.
Right. Did it light a fire though, LT? If one wasn't already lit, when you have Uncle Carl going on and basically songing you guys that, hey, what the hell? I mean, the gist of his comments were really like, WTF? What's going on? A year and a half, no action. And then you lead this group that he was talking about. So, well,
he tried anyway. And there's different groups involved that I think he was telling me yesterday. He was thinking about, but part of the leadership is this has been an issue that I've been caring about, and I've been trying to sort out, and it's an issue that has been going on for 10 years. And I'm hopeful that in the next week or so, we'll be able to gain some time and try and try and put some closure. The other frustration has been some gaps, and I've been working with public health, some gaps in CPS and some shortages. And by the way, if you're a social worker or if you retired and you want to work for CPS, contact public health, because there is some resources and there is a priority to get more people in there to help. But one of the big frustrations is the unsheltered kids out there, and I've been pushing back on some internal policies that say that unsheltered kids, if they're with their parents, are not at risk, and I totally disagree. And that's something that we're straightening out right now. Some of the cases, and I do want to thank Paula Perez from Catholic Social Services and her team, including Salvation Army, for going out there They have been doing some casework, and they've identified some of the families and some of the individuals to determine whether or not they will actually take the option, which is theirs, to try and get some shelter. And so that had resulted in a dual strategy of there's some people that are just looking for a bed for the night. Some of them, surprisingly, are working in the construction industry, for example. Some of them have been fighting with their family, and they just need to, they're trying to repair those relations. And some of them have been kicked out of public housing because they haven't followed rules, or they have, or there's been a conviction for criminal sexual conduct that has been discovered, and based on federal laws, have driven them out of that subsidized federal housing. So there is some local resources that we have to put in as part of this to fund the gap, because there is a big grant, relatively big grant that is ready for award to some of the shelter providers that is still being finalized at the HUD level for GURA, that will provide some vouchers, but those won't be, but people with the CSC convictions, even if they have kids, won't be eligible for that. And that's where we have to throw in some resources to stabilize them, and then come up with the proper management and different levels. I mean, it is kind of complicated, but I think we're going to get through with it. I'm confident we're going to get through with it and give some people some options that are sustainable.
What's your timeline?
This is like the top thing right now I'm dealing with. Actually, I would say this is number two. Right after number one, of course, is preventing the spread and monitoring the numbers and making sure that public health has resources on the testing and the tracing. But this is right up there. This is something that I am spending a good portion of my time every day, 7 days a week, trying to push through and make some progress here.
Yeah, because it seems like it is really concerning, considering the fact that we're in typhoon season. There's this focus by the physicians that we need to stay healthy, and when you see some of the homeless people that are out there, in the rain, the likelihood that they could get sick and end up in the hospital or
those are all the things that are going on in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And of course, the big thing is the kids.
Yeah, and the children.
Yeah.
It is really sad. But it's good to hear that you've got, GORA trying to find them homes.
Yeah, there are multiple. There's a whole lot of people that I'm driving, trying to make some good progress that is going to be effective for them. And I also want to thank Diana Calvo from Catholic Social Services for steering us away from some of the methods that were tried in the past that didn't work. For example, in the past they had acquired some shelter in different areas of the island that people didn't want to go to because it was too far away, or it was away from some of the areas that they can get services. So that's all being taken into consideration. Mm-hmm. I mean, last week I was out there looking at some abandoned homes over under Guam Housing Corporation, and also looking at some of the government land out there that we can try different methods. After we get this, the immediate bed for the night and emergency shelter, our work still is not done, and I think that it's going to there's going to be some additional, more long-term things that we'll be acquiring in the short term. One gap that the folks at Catholic Social Services tell me that is missing is long-term transitional housing for people that are going through rehab or getting their skills training, getting them up to become employed, and that's causing a backlog in folks at in mothers and kids at Alley Shelter and some of the other streams of emergency shelter that are out there. So that's kind of like where we're at. I would tell you that our plan and our strategy for how we're going to coordinate the government agencies and align them with the Mayor's Council will likely be issued tomorrow.
I want to
Can
say
you
we
say-
heard this one before, but I'm really hopeful.
Yeah, well, you know,
LT.
it's true. But, I mean, the pressure for me and for our government is to follow through and meet that expectation. And, you know, this is something that I'm going to be working very hard to get done.
What are we talking about? This strategy.
So
With the Mayor's
one of the issues I feel that has been going on is that over the last 8 years, the government outsourced responsiveness to homelessness to the Homeless Coalition, which is a nonprofit that there are some agencies that are involved, but it isn't leadership that's involved. And so when you ask who is the lead agency of the government of Guam on homelessness, every single agency kind of takes a step back because it's in conflict with some of their missions and mandates. GURA, Ray Tapasnia here, was pushing to be the lead agency, but his federal grantors are letting him know that because of all the exclusions, he cannot be the lead agency when it looks like, based on some of the counts, we have folks that are ineligible for HUD programs that are in the homeless group and therefore would not be able to get services from them. And so public health is another area that you would think, because of the social service, human service side. But as you know, their number one priority right now is dealing with this public health emergency. And the Mayor's Council has been talking about how they know exactly who the people are and some of the gaps. And so based on that, we are creating a structure that is going to empower and direct the agencies and establish who exactly is going to be the lead, and then have some mandates. And I think that some of the mandates are going to connect the dots between programs that should be able to be used to help people based on the circumstances, and gaps in which people are not getting approved or getting seen to get into those streams. That's a big thing that has been going on.
What about these kind of? Are you done with? Bree?
Yeah, well, I just want to know. So we're gonna have mayors, helping fill out applications, homeless people, or I mean,
like I said, we'll you'll see that in the next day or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But I have been meeting with almost on a daily basis with some of the mayors, developing and determining what are the most effective paths and what are the areas that are being missed right now by the government.
Yeah, and you're right. They would know. I mean, we've talked to enough mayors in the last several months.
Right. Like as a basic example, mayors are supposed to, if you're going to get a real ID or any ID, you have to get a mayor's certification, right? But mayor's certifications are tied to addresses. So how are homeless people going to get an ID if there's no address, right? And that's something that I think that we'll be able to resolve in this structure that we've been that we're organizing right now.
Okay.
Could we just get a statement on the retirements and the reshufflings that are going on in the administration, LT?
Well, I guess I would just say that sometimes people make decisions to leave for their personal reasons, but our government is going to continue. And as a veteran of another administration, I would tell you that you always see people coming in and leaving based on their personal situations. Mm-hmm. I do want to recognize Linda DeNorsi, who has done a tremendous job with her team at Public Health. And I'll just say that, I've always known that we were on borrowed time with her because she had plans to retire prior to us getting in, and we had to talk her into staying. I do admit that I didn't think that she would leave this soon. But after talking to her and understanding, some of the reasons, I totally support it, and I'm just very grateful for all the things she is doing to respond. And I'll just say that what I've learned about her in the big picture, because I've also been working a lot with some of the regional and national officials that are in the areas of public health. Our community health centers have been built pretty much by her leadership, and we have some of the best community health centers in the country. Our community health centers are looked to as models for other states and territories, and that has a lot to do with how committed she is and how keenly aware she is of what the public health needs are. And so I just very grateful and thankful that she gave us this time, and wish her well. And hopefully one day when I get to travel, I'll get to visit her in this house that she's had abroad for years.
Oh,
Las
wow.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have to say that I had to, when the dengue situation occurred, right? And then I had to go and take over a mission for the governor at the UN and at the Pentagon. You remember that, Chris? We spoke when I was
Right.
in New York.
Yeah.
I dropped by. She had also been invited to speak at the Guam community in Nevada, and I met her entire family over there, and they were telling me that her house is waiting for her, and can we go ahead and let her go? And but I wish her well.
I remember, Linda, though, because I did an interview with her, and she was talking about how she was going to be retiring. And this was years ago when they finished building the
Southern Public Health
right.
community, which
And
she
it-
was so integral in.
Oh
in
gosh, I did a whole tour, and it was still brand new, and it was so beautiful. And that facility, like you mentioned, LT, was practically all built from federal funds that she helped secure.
Yes. The other thing she did is that she has, she really did a lot of progress with electronic health records. And the one thing that I worked on closely with her is a shift in which GMH and Public Health made a decision and are now in the middle of rolling out their alignment for electronic health records. And it's all based on a structure that she'd been working on. And so there's a lot of tremendous things that and I would say that no matter what, she also knows that how to handle pressure, because she has been managing a department during a pandemic, which is
Right.
quite an amazing feat.
Were you at all taken by surprise when the governor's legal counsel resigned? Because that seemed kind of abrupt too.
No, he had been talking about it for months and months and months. And so, it was always going to be his decision how long he was going to stick it out, and, making some decisions for his own quality of life, and wish him well, too.
I was just wondering, because we were talking about this, right? There's still a lot of unanswered questions with this procurement, and would he still be made available? I'm not just sure on the logistics of it. Let's say if the senators wanted to do another oversight hearing, who would answer those questions about his role in that whole process with the emergency procurement? Or now that he's no longer working?
Well, no matter what, remember that there's still an audit going on, right? And so, obviously there's still a process. But I do want to tell you that I received word yesterday that despite the controversy and the scrutiny that transaction had, FEMA's Public Assistance Office has reviewed it and has now made decisions to process and approve reimbursements for that portion of the quarantine. That just happened yesterday.
Oh wow! So was there? Because I remember Estevez and they seemed to say that they were going over the process and trying to shore up paperwork gaps and all that.
I'll give you some insight in the FEMA process since I used to be a GAR. The public assistance team landed last week, and the public assistance team they'll send out folks that are that will be reviewing all these project worksheets that get submitted by all the agencies throughout the government. And then they take a look at the contracts, they'll take a look at the justification, and then they initiate a pretty long, relatively long process, because things don't happen overnight with them. You have to make decisions about what is eligible and what's ineligible, and then after the eligibility determination is made, then they do all of the processing and the paperwork to line things up. As I understand from yesterday, they've looked at the operation, they reviewed the documents, and they reviewed the situation, and they made a decision on determining it's eligible, and then now they're in the longer part of that process now, which is just getting all of the lining them up for all of the processing and the review and documenting everything and making the applications complete, I guess, is the more.
So are you saying that we're going to be reimbursed for it, or that they're saying it's eligible to be considered for reimbursement?
Well, it looks like it's going to be reimbursed. How much will be reimbursed is always going to depend on at the end of the completed application. They're here to make sure that everything is prepared for the final submission of the GAR, which is John Junior Calvo, and the approval of the disaster, the federal coordinating officer, which right now is Bob Fenton. The difficulty for FEMA right now is normally you have a federal coordinating officer assigned to a disaster. This one, Bob Fenton, who is a good friend of mine actually for the last 20 years, he's a regional administrator. He is now the federal coordinating officer for the entire Western region. So how long that's going to be, this is a new thing for FEMA to be operating disasters in every single state and territory. So I guess we're all going to be learning how fast that process is going to be for project at the same time.
Right. Okay.
Were you going to ask anything else?
No, I'm okay.
No? Okay, I just wanted to, before we let you go, is there anybody else retiring or resigning?
Are
or
you
being
resigning
transferred?
or retiring?
I am not resigning or retiring. I have a job to do, and every day I wake up, and I always am going to be optimistic, trying to get through this despite all this other stuff going on.
Yeah. Who's
That's one thing I'll always tell you. And if I'm pissed off, then, I'm going to drink some Bud and go to sleep. Then the next day I'll be back up.
drink some Bud or smoke some Bud?
Maybe a little bit of both. No.
I'll invite you over, Chris, and you let me know.
Who's the deputy administrator of GITA replacing Ricky?
That hasn't been named yet.
Okay, all right.
And then what can you tell us about Bobby Alvarez, his new role at GITA?
He's been working on aquaculture, and there's a big movement that we're working on with agriculture and aquaculture with University of Guam and Guam Department of Agriculture. And the reason that and what we're excited about is this is a third leg now for us, and we have made this a big priority for GITA. And with Mel Mendiola's experience in agriculture, I think we'll be able to do a good thing. But we're working closely on this with Dr. Bob Barber, with Jess Bamba up there at EOG, and then with the team at Department of Agriculture. And I would just say stay tuned to that, because there's some big movement happening along there.
All right, LT.
And let me pass you on to Ray.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Forgot about it.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for always bringing information to the people. So hold on for a minute.
Right. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Now let's get GOR Director Ray Tapasi. They were just in the same meeting, and
okay.
yeah. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning.
First of all, we're doing good. Are you planning on resigning or retiring anytime?
Not unless the governor asks me to. So no,
Okay.
I have no plans.